Radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
Hey, good morning, South Florida. Welcome to another Ask the Expert show where we'll bring you the top experts in the field of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. We have got such a great show for you this morning. We have with us attorney Andrew Rosenberg. He is an estate planning attorney. He is in the Coral Springs area. But if you're anywhere in South Florida, actually, if you're anywhere in Florida, you can reach his office at 954-755-7803. We're waiting for Andrew to come on. Ah, there he is.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning. Well, you're following a show talking about investments and tariffs and we've got a lot of people who hold over for your show. I just want people to know, stop worrying. It's going to be okay. It's not the end of the earth. Everything is going to work out. Good morning, Andrew.
Hey, good morning. Yeah, that's great to follow up a discussion like that today, huh?
Yeah, it's one of our shows. Been with us for like 3 or 4 years now, and just don't worry. We're still talking actually kind of in a way about money. Andrew, tell people about your firm. You're located in Coral Springs, Florida, my hometown. Tell people about your firm.
Yeah, my firm is dealing with wills, trust, estate planning, probate, and Medicaid planning. So I get to hopefully handle things so that when something does happen to you, either incapacity or when we do pass away, that it will go smoothly and we won't have the turmoil like we're having with the tariffs and with everything else going on in the financial arena today.
I got to tell you, you got a supreme compliment. We have a lot of people in New York who listen to our show because they live here half of the year. And we had a lady who is coming here in, I believe she said in July, and she's been listening to your show. And she said, I feel so comfortable just hearing him on the air. He's got to be the same way in person. I said, but he is in person. And so she wanted your phone number. She's going to contact you when she comes down here from New York. But I thought that was so funny. She said, I like him, how he sounds on the radio. I wonder if he's the same way in person. I thought that was hilarious, but you never know who's listening to the show, right?
Yeah. It's kind of nice. I'll take that as a big compliment. But
yes,
I am originally Midwestern, so I'm originally from Indiana. So my Midwestern background lends me to be a little bit more easygoing and being able to talk to a little bit easier than a lot of different type of people from different parts of the country. So I think that maybe rubs off a lot when it comes to meeting with clients discussing such important issues as estate planning.
Andy, I'm going to ask you, this is probably a very broad question, but I'm going to ask it. Who needs estate planning?
So it's funny, Steve-O. I tell people that everybody, and that's not what they want to hear, but every freaking person needs estate planning. And let me explain. You know, I'm in the middle of writing a book, by the way. And I just finished it, rough draft of it. And one of the topics in the book is this question, who needs estate planning? And my answer is, like I said, everybody. And here's why. People have a misconception out there that you have to have a lot of money and you have to be wealthy in order to do estate planning. And first off, what the hell is estate planning? People don't even know what that is. So let's first go there, Steve-O. Let's explain what estate planning is. And how I like to describe estate planning when I do my workshops down here, I like to describe it as it's a way of controlling your assets and the distribution of your assets, as well as your healthcare decision making. And the question becomes, that's what estate planning is how do we control the assets and the distribution of the assets, as well as healthcare concerns? And it depends on while we're alive and we're well, meaning that we're fine, there's no issues, or what happens if we become disabled or incapacitated, or God forbid, when we do pass away. And that's kind of what estate planning is about. And that's when I start off my workshops, I say, what the hell is estate planning, guys? And just remember that all this legal mumbo jumbo that we talk about all comes down to this. How do you distribute your assets? How do you get assets controlled if you become disabled or incapacitated? And what happens if you do become disabled or incapacitated? Who makes healthcare decisions for you? And is it while you're alive and well, while you're disabled, or while you pass away? That's estate planning. So that's what we're talking about, estate planning. And then the next step is, well, who the hell needs it? And my answer again is everybody. And let me explain a little bit further into that. So again, people think that you have to be wealthy and have an older or whatever to need it. And that's a bunch of BS. So let's say that I'm married and I got a young kid. Well, guess what? And I have no assets. And I've been there. I was 35 years ago. I'm an old fart now, but 30 plus years ago, I'm coming up on, hard to believe, 32 years of marriage in June. But, when my wife, Debbie, and I were married and we had our first kid, we had no assets. I mean, we were piss poor broke, working hard to pay off debt and get ahead in life. But guess what? I don't have assets at that age, but I have a kid. So estate planning is essential in that situation, because what happens if Debbie and I got killed in an auto accident? Who's going to take care of my child, my young child at that point? Well, that's where estate planning is key and pivotal to handle. So there's a scenario where if you're young, you need to have estate planning. I'm going to go one step further, Steve-O. And I talk to people all the time about this. I go, what happens if you have a kid that's 18 years old going off to college? Guess what? That 18-year-old kid who has nothing, I mean, no assets or anything, they need to have estate planning. And let me give you a scenario. Let's say we got a kid, and I've had this happen several times, unfortunately. Let's say we have a kid down here in Florida, and they end up going to college at UF, University of Florida. They're 18 years old. They go off, and they get in a car accident, and they get a call in the middle of the night from a friend of the kid saying, your son's in a car accident. He's in the hospital. He's not awake. They want to talk to the doctors, the parents. And guess what? The parents legally are not going to be allowed to talk to the doctors. Why? Because an 18-year-old in the state of Florida is considered an adult. And if they don't have the proper legal documents in that situation, a healthcare surrogate or a healthcare proxy, then you're not going to be able to talk to the doctors. They're not going to release any vital information. So what happens in that situation? The parents have to get in a car from South Florida, drive 5.5 hours to get up to Gainesville, University of Florida, and then pray to God that my kid's okay. Another reason someone, an 18-year-old, would need things. What happens? Your 18-year-old kid doesn't even know how to open up a freaking bank account when they're in college, and they don't know how to write. No one knows how to write checks anymore. All they do is Zelle everything around here. So, how do they get help from you as an 18-year-old adult for dealing with their financial affairs? Well, that's a durable power of attorney. So my answer to that question, I know it's a long-winded answer, but the question was, who needs estate planning? And my answer is everybody. And now you know why.
Andy, that word estate, that's what really gets everybody. I wish we could retitle it some other way rather than estate planning, because I think that's why people feel that way. And I'm while you're talking, I'm listening, and I keep reverting back to the Terry Shively. Look what that family had to go through.
Yeah, that was horrible. Yeah, it was the Terry Schiavo case way back when, and that created a whole nother industry, and which I deal with as part of the estate planning. That created something called a living will, which is this is how I always describe it. I said a living will is called a dying with dignity document, a pull the plug document, or the Terry Schiavo document. And Steve-O, you and I are old enough to remember the case. There are a lot of
Yeah.
people born after us that don't know the case at all. So that started that document and created the document called the living will. And basically that's another document that I talk about with kids that are going to college, although it's a little scary to talk about it with someone so young, but it's so important to talk to everyone about it, which is that living will or dying with dignity document. And what that is basically, God forbid you're ever put on life support and the doctors have determined that there's medically nothing more they can do, and the only thing keeping you alive is that ventilator with all the tubes and stuff. In that situation, the living will should kick in. And then what it is, though, is it's the my kids call this adulting, Steve. It's when you make adult decisions, when you're a kid and you're trying to figure out what you got to do and you have to make adult decisions. I call it adulting because the living will is basically you are telling your loved ones while you're alive and while you're of sound mind, if you are ever put in that situation where you are put on life support, whether you want to stay on it or you want it taken away, so that your loved ones don't have to make that horrible, horrible decision if that ever should happen. And I will tell you, I've been practicing for over 30 years, that the most common call I get over the 30 years of practice is a thank you call when I do get a thank you. Every now and then I get a thank you, Steve-O, not very often, but
That's surprising.
is a thank you call from the family. It might be the spouse, it might be the children, it might be a sibling. And unfortunately, their loved one had to be put on life support, and there was nothing more the doctors could do. And they knew what their brother, sister, mom, dad, whoever it was, wanted. They didn't have to have a sleepless night knowing, should I keep my person on life support or take it away, because they had the signed living will in place. And that's a huge document. And I used to have, it's kind of funny, Steve-O, when I would explain these documents, with the clients in my conference room, here if you picture, I'm in a conference room. I got the spouse to the left of me. I got the other spouse to the right of me. And we're going through all these documents and they're falling asleep because it's not the most exciting stuff in the world, right? We're talking about all this stuff. And then I get to the living will and I stop in my tracks. Now I stop in my tracks. What used to happen was I'd have a husband decide to have the plug pulled. I'd have the wife that wanted to stay on life support, and they'd have a huge family squabble right in front of me for 20 minutes. I mean, it was like fighting, like horrible. And now I don't have any of that, because you know why? I sit down with the clients, and when the husband and the wife or whoever it is are next, right across from each other, and I'm in the middle, I basically tell them, you guys need to respect each other's decisions, and that this is a personal decision. You may not like it, but it's their decision. It's their body. So, I mean, I know we're talking like, we're trying to have fun with it, but it's a pretty serious topic and a pretty serious discussion. Now, here's what I want to make sure you understand, though. And this is what gets misconstrued out there. So the living will, which we're talking about here, which is that Terry Schiavo document you mentioned, that's like an end stage condition, at least in Florida. Okay, I don't know other states. Again, there, we're throughout the country here, so other states have different rules with the living will. I can tell you in Florida that the living will or the Terry Schiavo document doesn't kick in until the doctors have determined first medically in their professional opinion that there's nothing more they can do. So an example that most people would think about would be, God forbid you're in a horrible car accident, you get rushed to the hospital, you're unconscious, and they realize you can't breathe on your own. They have to put you on the ventilator and the tubes and stuff. They run all these different tests. They're doing everything they can. One of the tests comes back saying that you're brain dead. Obviously, in that situation, the doctors are going to say, listen, there's nothing more we can do, and the only thing keeping you alive is that ventilator. That's the living will. But everyone gets this confused with a DNR, a do not resuscitate. That is completely different, but people think it's the same thing. And so if it's okay, I'd like to explain the difference. Is that all right to go through that, Steve-O?
Yes.
Okay, so a DNR is a do not resuscitate. So I'm a great example, okay? It didn't happen to me, but it could have. So I'm a swimmer, and I had a heart attack at 48 in the swimming pool with my swim team. Let's use this as an example. Let's say that I'm swimming, I pull myself out of the water, I don't feel well, and I all of a sudden just drop to the pool deck, and I'm dead. Right there, I'm dead. And hopefully there's going to be someone there that's going to do whatever they can to do CPR or whatever to try and revive me. If they knew that I had a DNR, do not resuscitate order, you couldn't do it. Even though they could bring me back, with CPR, if I had a DNR, you could not bring me back. That's not my wishes. So that's a big distinction between an end stage condition such as a living will and a DNR or do not resuscitate. There's a famous case. I mean, I'm going way back, Steve-O, 30 plus years when I was in law school, about DNRs. I'll never forget it. I don't remember the case, but I remember the facts. The facts were that it was a typical biker motorcycle kind of bar, right? And you got this big heavy set biker dude that's drinking at the bar, beers, chugging things down, has a vest on, a big hairy chest, no shirt underneath, the typical scenario that you would think of. He gets up to walk out, and then he just drops dead. And there happened to be a paramedic there. The paramedic immediately went into action and saw what was going on, immediately ripped the vest off, and is getting ready to start compressions and just doesn't do anything. And the reason why that paramedic didn't do anything was this huge biker dude had tattooed on his chest, do not resuscitate.
Oh, wow. Yeah, how would they know?
Well, that's how you know. So there you go. So
wow.
Yes. So, but that's the difference between a DNR and a living will. And I will also tell you, people, I do videos all the time, as you know, and you're welcome to see all my videos. They're all on the website and YouTube and all that. But people ask me this question: how do people know that I have a DNR or a living will or a healthcare surrogate or anything of that nature?
Right.
My recommendation is as follows. If you have a primary doctor that you go to, next time you've updated the documents, bring a copy of those documents to your primary care physician and make sure they have a copy in their records on staff. The other scenario, I live in an area called Weston, Florida, and there's the Cleveland Clinic. That's the hospital right by me. So yeah. I know if something's going to happen to me, which it did, by the way, with the heart attack. I got rushed to the hospital. If something were to happen to me, I'd be rushed to Cleveland Clinic. So I contacted Cleveland Clinic many years ago, and I said, hey, listen, I have a living will, HIPAA, and a healthcare directive. Can you guys please hold a copy of that in your systems so that if I'm ever brought in, you guys can pull up in the system and it will show that you have the healthcare directive, living will, all that good stuff, and you know who to contact, etc. And so they were one of the hospitals that said, yes, we will take your documents, and they scanned them in. So they have on file, if something were to happen and they identify me when I'm coming in, who I am, with my wallet or whatever, they're able to pull up who are the contacts and what my wishes are. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So
I think you should add Coral Springs Hospital too.
yeah, because
You know what I
that's what
mean.
yeah, you're not joking there. But I mean, so again, we talked about what estate planning is, and I just explained the concept of it. But then we got into the living will and the healthcare directive and the DNR, which is really important. And what you need to understand in Florida, at least, I don't know other states, but in Florida, I cannot do the DNR. The attorney cannot do a DNR. It needs to be done by a doctor. And it's such a
Wow.
crazy statute on it. I'm going off memory. It has to be done on like bright orange or yellow paper. And it has to be done in front of your doctor, and they have to explain a certain way, and then it has to be signed in front of your doctor, and then it's valid. So the attorneys don't do DNRs because it's supposed to be done by a medical professional. I'm
That's
not a big
crazy.
fan of DNRs because I had a heart attack, and if I did drop dead, there's no one could have come back and tried to save me. Thank God that didn't happen. I didn't lose consciousness. But I know some people are, and that's what it's for. I could tell you that I have an aunt, and that's the only time I've ever seen it done in action. She was in the hospital being treated for some issues. And she specifically said, I want a DNR. And so they came in, and the doctors came in, and they did it right in front of me. And I tried to advise her against it because I'm not a big fan of it. But she was adamant about it, and I wanted to make sure she understand the pros and cons of that. She did, and she signed it. So, it does happen.
We after our last show, and Andy will be back again with us in 2 weeks. Somebody came in the middle of the show, and we've actually gotten 2 or 3 emails about this. Is people there's fighting that happens when just choosing power of attorney,
Oh my God.
and you know that it hurts, people's feelings get hurt, or they don't like who's been chosen. But we have 2 more minutes. Can you tell people how you do it? It seems like the best way to do it.
So here's a rule of advice. Here's some input for me as an attorney. When you have a durable power of attorney, that's dealing with financial stuff. Okay, that's if you become incapacitated and you can't handle your financial affairs. Who's going to stand in your shoes to handle things so that we don't have to go through guardianship court, which is a nightmare? So my quick answer, because we're short on time, is when you're naming someone, number one, try not to name an even number. Try to name an odd number. So it might be 1 person, it might be 3 people. And the reason for that is simple. If you have an even number of people involved, if one agrees and one disagrees on doing something, guess what? We're at a stalemate.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's just the first response is don't, if you can avoid it. Sometimes you can't. I mean, I have 2 kids. So, it makes sense to name both my kids. However, I have 1 kid that's financially irresponsible, and I have 1 kid that's financially responsible. So guess what? The financially irresponsible person is not going to be my durable power. They'll be the alternate in that situation. I don't know if that helps you or not, but that's my quick response.
Yeah. Do you have any workshops coming up?
I do. I have one coming up, I think, August 9th. And I don't even remember the location. I'm not, it's on the scroll, or you can call my office to verify that, August 9th. And then April 9th, sorry, April 9th. And again, on April 23rd, call the office if you want to attend. It is required for reservation, 954-755-7803. And it's going to be on estate planning essentials.
Andy will be back with us in 2 weeks at 9:25 Eastern time. Andy, thank you so much. Your show goes by so fast. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
All right, Steve-O, have a great week, buddy.
You too, buddy. That's attorney Andrew Rosenberg. He's an estate planning attorney in Coral Springs, Florida. That'll do it for us today. We'll be back again with you next week. If you're listening here in South Florida, tune in tonight at 6 p.m. for our restaurant show, the Eat and Critique Show, 6 p.m. We'll see you all later. Thank you, Rebel.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.